Hello and welcome to episode 137 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for joining me today on the program. Thank you for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree. That is linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. I am on Twitch. I am on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. I'm thinking about going back to Blue Sky anyways, TikTok, and so many other places. We got a hell of a show for you today, and we're going to do things a little bit differently on this program. Assassin's Creed Shadows is out. I have been playing it. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about that at the top of the show. We're also going to cover news. Got a huge amount of news, some really good news, actually, some really exciting stuff happening in and around the world of video games. I'm excited to talk about that. Going to talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm also going to run through with you the Atomfall reviews. Atomfall, the new game from your friends and mine over at Rebellion. It is a open world survival action game. They describe it as British Fallout, and I don't know if that's necessarily 100% true for a variety of reasons. I don't know if it's 100% true, but we're going to cover that in a moment. But first, let's talk Assassin's Creed Shadows. So if you're wondering why this episode probably going to lean towards the longer side of things, it's because I got a lot to say about Assassin's Creed Shadows, and we got a decent amount of news to get through. So you're here, I'm here. Let's run through it together. Assassin's Creed Shadows is out. That is out by courtesy of your friends and mine over at Ubisoft. Now, one thing I'm going to do while I talk is I'm going to pull up a little bit of details surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows, because I think there's like some important distinctions to make. Assassin's Creed Shadows, made by Ubisoft. It is a large team of people that are working on these Assassin's Creed games and Ubisoft games all over the world, but the main developer on this one is Ubisoft Quebec. Sacre Bleu. I don't even know what that means. I just said it. Long story short, Assassin's Creed Shadows, made by Ubisoft Quebec previously, because you might be wondering, well, what did Ubisoft Quebec work on in the past? Ubisoft Quebec also responsible for Immortals Phoenix Rising in 2020. That is the open world action adventure game set in like the Greek mythology, very much inspired by a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in terms of puzzles and open world and combat. It's actually a pretty game. It's all right. I didn't love Immortals Phoenix Rising. It's interesting because you don't see that many games take direct influence from something like a Breath of the Wild, and this one was pretty obviously inspired by it, but nonetheless, Immortals Phoenix Rising, that was in 2020, out on pretty much everything. That was Ubisoft Quebec. Ubisoft Quebec also worked on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so that was the most recent Assassin's Creed game in 2018 that they made. They also made South Park: The Fractured But Whole. They also worked on Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry. They also worked on the Wii version of the Black Eyed Peas experience. If you don't know what Black Eyed Peas the experience is, I won't bore you with the details, but they made a Black Eyed Peas video game, and it was an experience, all right. The reason I bring all this stuff up is because, Assassin's Creed Shadows is very much in line with, Valhalla and Origins and Odyssey. And at this point, I would say I'm pretty familiar with the kind of rebooted take on Assassin's Creed, leaning into that more RPG formula. But the only game that I'm, not as familiar with is actually Odyssey. Odyssey is the game I've spent the least amount of time with out of all of the RPGs. I played through Origins, played through Valhalla. I played through as much of Valhalla as I had in me, which was roughly about 100 hours of Valhalla. And here we are now with Assassin's Creed Shadows. They did it. They finally got it out the door. Assassin's Creed Shadows, delay after delay after delay, and we are here now. Last week we talked about on the podcast positive review scores for Assassin's Creed Shadows. They are doing quite well. I got some news stories in a moment about sales and launch for Assassin's Creed Shadows. It has been a successful game by any standards, but it seems like Ubisoft standards. But the thing I just want to stress right here, right now, is that this is quintessentially, unapologetically, an Assassin's Creed game in that RPG formula. It is, we'll talk about the quality of the game. It's a good game. It's fine. I like it so far, but it is one of those. This is not a game that is going to shake up that formula whatsoever. So if you came into this being like, oh man, they're going to, take all of their inspiration from something like a Ghost of Tsushima and strip away the bloat and strip away the bullshit or do this or do that. No, they are taking the formula of Valhalla. They are remixing it to fit the time period that the game exists in. They are maybe taking inspiration from other Assassin's Creed, other Ubisoft games. We'll talk about that in a moment. And they are repackaging it, representing it to you with a new world and a new story and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's new to the game and changed about the game. But it is one of those. So if you're sitting there being like, I have hated Assassin's Creed since they changed it into that more Witcher-esque formula with Origins, this is not the game for you. And say that right now. If you're looking for a more simplified, boots on the ground, back to basics approach to Assassin's Creed, akin to something like 2 or Brotherhood, this is not the game for you. If you are looking for a game where it is kind of the video game equivalent of comfort food, but maybe like a fun, tasty twist on that comfort food, that is the game for you. And if you're looking for a game, and you probably aren't, but if you are looking for a game that is going to save Ubisoft from itself, this is also not going to be that game, because you can't have one game undo all of the damage that Ubisoft has done to itself over the last few years. So despite how successful this game might be, despite whatever, they had to go through to get the game out the door, it is a good game, but it is not going to save Ubisoft. It's not going to turn the fortunes of the company around, so on and so forth. That being said, what is going on with Assassin's Creed Shadows? Assassin's Creed Shadows is taking place in ancient feudal Japan during the Oda Nobunaga's ambitious reign, terrorizing the folks in Japan during the time period. My understanding is that Nobunaga, a very ambitious guy. I don't know if you've heard, Nobunaga and ambition go together like peanut butter and jelly. No, my understanding is that he maybe not necessarily a conqueror the way that like a Genghis Khan. I know we're mixing our timelines and ancient history here. Listen, I'm not fucking Indiana Jones. I don't know anything about ancient history. What I'm telling you is that Nobunaga seemed like a guy who just wanted to control all of Japan versus, conquering and taking over foreign lands and whatnot. So game very much set in a time where it seems like Nobunaga has conquered all but what little remains of independent Japan in that time period. And it is a game that, if you have heard already, is a dual protagonist game where you play as Naoe, the Japanese born ninja-esque character, and Yasuke, who is at the time an indentured servant, slave, whatever you want to call, to these Portuguese priests. So the first thing that kind of really got me going in this game, and I maybe just didn't put it together during marketing, is it is very much going for, at least at the start of the game, that Shogun esque feel. It's very, very much inspired by something like Shogun, where you have these, Portuguese priests and traders trying to make, headways into Japan and stuff like that. And basically the game opens with Yasuke and his priest masters going to Lord Nobunaga to be like, hey, can our priests, practice freely within your region, and can we trade? And Nobunaga says like, yeah, like you're kind of already doing that. Like I'm kind of already letting you do that. So I don't know why you're bothering me with this. But then he sees Yasuke, and And he's like, hey, this guy's not like your other guys. He's talking about his skin color and just the way Yasuke carries himself. And it's just like, oh, like when I told you guys, like when, like basically like it's a long cutscene at the start of the game. And basically tensions start to rise during the cutscene between Nobunaga and these priests. And Nobunaga says like when our, something along the lines of like when our conversation turned, Yasuke immediately recognized every threat in the room and in the environment, and he's not like you guys, so you are continue to do what you're already doing, but I want Yasuke. And then basically the opening of the story is Yasuke being taken under Nobunaga's wing as Nobunaga goes and destroys farmland and small villages and people and just murking fools left and right. The opening moments of the game, once you actually start playing the game, is actually you playing as Yasuke, and you're kind of going through and tearing ass through this, like, farmland and small village controlled by and defended by rebels, or at least that's what it seems like after you finish that tutorial. It's not maybe immediately obvious that you are potentially the bad guys in this scenario, but that's where you kind of go through the combat tutorials a little bit as Yasuke, but you really only do it for like 10 or 20 minutes playing as Yasuke until you are basically taken and transported into playing as a Naoe, and you finally kind of get her and her family's perspective of like what the other side of the conflict is like, with Nobunaga kind of taking over their farmland and their community and stuff like that. The crux of the game, as I have played it right now, is you playing as Naoe, and it is a pretty boilerplate revenge story. Basically, these people that may or may not be, like, you have beef, and like Naoe and her family got beef with Nobunaga because he came through and fucked up all of their family stuff. Like they got bad stuff going on. They got beef with Nobunaga, but it's also a scenario where these like masked figures, like these like this League of Shadows type characters, basically kill Naoe's dad. And there's this it's actually a really great sequence, opening credits in the game, kind of where you see basically all of the figures, and it's all very like comic book cartoonish style, where like each individual assassin is part of this guild that takes over your farm and kills Naoe's dad and all of this stuff. They're all very distinct looking. They all have like these very colorful masks and distinct, figures and distinct characteristics. And, basically Naoe is injured during the fight, trying to defend her homeland. And this is all very early in the game, so this is spoilers. I'm sorry, but I'm just setting this up, and then we'll get to the other parts of the game. So, you go through some tutorials with Naoe and her family, and learning like, oh, her dad's really good at fighting, but he's kept a lot of things a secret from Naoe. Is he part of the Assassin's Guild? Yes, because he's the one who gives you the hidden wrist blade. So it's like Naoe, basically in the heat of battle, learns that maybe her dad was hiding things from her as part of the setup to the story. And then she immediately, like, as soon as she starts to realize that, like, oh, he's maybe an assassin and has been hiding this from her, and that's why he's such a good warrior and how he kind of trained her to be a good warrior. Naoe's dad immediately dies in front of her amongst all these kind of masked figures. And she's injured in battle, and she's screaming and she's crying, and he's getting like slowly getting picked apart by these like kind of League of Assassins type characters. I say assassin, not in the Assassin's Creed style, but just like these are a bunch of mercenary bad dudes out to fuck up Naoe and her family. And it's got like this, the music, the stinger music in that opening sequence is so good. It's like this like Quentin Tarantino-esque spaghetti western, just like these twangy, just like guitars, and it's so kind of melodramatic and perfect. It takes the music. Sometimes when the music in this game is kicking, it is very much inspired by that more spaghetti western type. And I think that's what, makes this game so fun, is you take the Shogun influence of like mixing the Portuguese conflict and then kind of the inclusion of the Portuguese priests and the traders and stuff like that, with more of an influence on something like spaghetti westerns than maybe traditional samurai movies. And this is maybe this is going too far, but if Ghost of Tsushima is very inspired by the samurai movies of Akira Kurosawa, excuse me, then Assassin's Creed leans a little bit more slightly into like 10% at times into a more Quentin Tarantino spaghetti western mixed up sort of influence. And I think it works really well to not only distinguish itself from the obvious influences of something like Ghost of Tsushima, but also just to give it a certain stank and a certain flair to it, right? If Assassin's Creed Syndicate is gangs of New York and kind of that Industrial Revolution, British gang brawling type experience, this is again leaning more into something like what I mentioned. So your ninja dad is running a community farmland, gets taken over by Nobunaga and all this stuff, and then you kind of get like a snapshot of these different figures, and you're basically out to kill them. That's the whole point of the game, is you are doing this opening sequence, and then once it's over, you are on a revenge mission. And I am a few hours into the game. I want to say I'm about 6 hours into the game, and I have not seen Yasuke again, the other main playable protagonist in this game, after the first 10 or 20 minutes in the game. It is very, very much Naoe and her story. And I was listening to, I want to say it was the Nextlander podcast, and they were kind of talking about how it seems very much like Naoe was and always was going to be the main character in this game. And then they decided, maybe at potentially the last minute, that Yasuke was a great supporting character and would be better off acting as a playable character in the game. But from everything I've seen so far, like I'm not playing as Yasuke again. It is purely Naoe and her story up until this point. A lot of things to talk about in terms of playing as Naoe and some of the mechanics and stuff in the game, but I will just say this right now: there's something weirdly refreshing about playing as an authentic ninja in a game series that has been about you playing as a ninja since the inception of the series. Like, when you think about the assassins and the playable characters in Assassin's Creed, they are as close to being a ninja as you could possibly get, despite being set in the time of the pirates, or in the time of the French Revolution, or the American Revolution, or whatever, right? Like, it is, they are almost having their cake and eating it too, in terms of the way that those games kind of gussy up and dress up their assassins characters. But at the end of the day, like, you can be a Viking, like, people are like, oh, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, finally I get to be a Viking. But it's like, you get to be a Viking flavored ninja, right? You get to go on your raiding parties, and you get to have a big axe or a big sword or a big shield and a big beard, and to stab people with your beard, or whatever you do as a Viking. But at the end of the day, you are still a ninja through and through, and there's nothing wrong with being a Viking or a pirate or whatever. But you are a ninja. That's what those games have always been. So there's something kind of like it. I almost feel like at ease and more comfortable with the idea of mixing my stealth with my stabbing, with my sabotage, with my this and my that, and my running and my jumping and my climbing and my grapple hook, which is actually a really nice inclusion in the game, with what is a ninja-like character in a feudal Japan setting. Like, it just, I know it sounds so dumb to be like, finally they made the ninja game based on their ninja series, but it's nice that they included, feudal Japan in this series long after it seemed like they were going to do it. Better late than never, I would say, but still, it's a nice inclusion. In terms of how Naoe plays, Naoe isn't quite as resilient in terms of taking damage as maybe Ivor and Bayek are in the other Assassin's Creed RPG games. Naue cannot take as much damage. She's also not great at taking on multiple enemies at one time, which means you either got to get really good with the dodging, really good with the blocking, or focus more on stealth until you can take on the last remaining enemies in something like an encampment, castle, things like that. That all being said, the game is very customizable. If you have difficulty considerations need to be met, that game probably has it. For example, ever since they switched from the classic Assassin's Creed formula to the RPG formula, one of the things they changed was the inclusion of the way, one of the things they changed was how you kind of deal damage to enemies, right? Oh, if you have a higher level or you equip a better sword, you're going to do more damage against enemies, right? Which impacted the head-on, one-on-one combat and fighting multiple enemies, but it also impacted things like stealth. So what used to be an instant assassination now became a scenario where you would do a little bit of damage when you snuck up against the enemy before the fight started. Or in the case of Assassin's Creed Shadows, there are some enemies that'll just completely bat you off and completely disregard any and all attempts you have on hitting them with stealth. That's something that you can turn off. So if you want your instant stealth, you can totally do that. I will say that the enemies in the game are pretty fucking dumb. So if you do turn on instant stealth, you will find it, and you are half decent at stealth, you will find it pretty easy to go from character to character to character in an encampment, a bandit camp, whatever, and take everybody out pretty easily without being spotted. And if you are spotted, just run around a corner. Like, I'm not saying like ask for an exit like Neo in the Matrix. I'm saying just duck in a bush and you'll be fine. Like, the characters are really dumb. They have like the object permanence of like a toddler in terms of like, oh, where'd he go? Where'd she go? I can't find her. Right? Like, they're pretty dumb. So if you do turn on something like instant stealth, the instant assassin or immediate assassination, or what do they call it? Guaranteed assassination, where you will kill a character no matter how strong they are, an enemy how strong they are, and then run away. Like, you can get through it pretty easily. You can also adjust the combat, and you can adjust the stealth difficulty. So, you have those rooftops, when you're running across like Japanese temples and castles and stuff like that. When you are on a rooftop, unless the enemy is above you, they will not see you, but you can adjust the difficulty to be like, okay, they will see me if I'm standing on a rooftop, which means I can't just be looking directly at them and them looking at me while I'm on that rooftop. You can also adjust the combat. So that was one thing I did do, is because I tend to play those games as, these Assassin's Creed games as, I'm going to get in and I'm going to be as stealthy as I can until I can't be stealthy anymore because I fucked it up. And then I'll just fight my way through it. The problem that I was having is that I was pretty decent at getting through the stealth until I got noticed. And with the way Naue is, kind of a glass cannon to some extent, I was dying somewhat frequently with the difficulty, I think, set to default. So I ended up just adjusting it and just kind of turning it down and being like, fuck it. These games are 100-hour long epics. I do not want to spend 100 hours banging my head against something like the combat mechanics or the leveling mechanics, stuff like that. I know it's an RPG and you will probably quickly outclass a lot of the enemies that you see in the original parts of the game once you get better gear and you level up. But like, I'm here to have fun now, not 20 hours from now, if that makes any sense. In terms of what, kind of the mechanics are like, you have your main weapon, you have an off weapon, which I recently unlocked my off weapon. You have equipable headgear, you have equipable, equipable armor sets, and then you also have an equipable trinket. You also have a mount, so you can ride your horse and do stuff like that. There are a lot of numbers and a lot of kind of stats and stuff that go with the gear in the game. You will find different rarity. Like, I found a common sword that did poison damage build up, but it wasn't quite as good as the epic rarity sword that I found that did bleeding damage over time and all this other stuff. But if you're looking to try to really synchronize your abilities and your playstyle with your gear, you can do a lot of that stuff. Even with the gear that you find, you can customize it. So if you found a sword that you really like, you can upgrade that sword instead of buying a new sword, or you can break down the swords and equipment that you find for materials. Among other things, there's money in the game. There's all sorts of customization stuff that you can do, both in terms of upgrading your character with your skill points and abilities, but also with the gear as well. So this is still, going back to like, oh, is it an RPG? Like, if an RPG means just putting a bunch of shit on your character and seeing if the numbers work to your advantage, then yeah, I guess this is still an RPG. I feel like when I think about an RPG, I think more about maybe a game like Baldur's Gate, or a game like Persona, or something like that. Something that isn't maybe so action focused. And also in a scenario where, like, if you never equipped, significantly better gear, but just upgraded your skill points and abilities, you'd probably still be able to make it through large parts of this game without necessarily engaging with the numbers. But like, you've been able to equip better gear and weapons in your Assassin's Creed games well before they took inspiration from something like The Witcher 3 and whatnot. So, it's one of these. It's one of these. You have a base of operations. So basically, once you get the game kind of up and running, you meet up with a couple of characters and you're just like, you know what, let's restore let's build up our ninja clan empire the way Dad would have always wanted it to be. And let's build up our farmland, and let's start recruiting scouts, and let's get a forge going, and we're going to get spies, and we're basically going to build up our ninja clan empire from the get-go. What that means is like a Fallout 4-esque system of you placing buildings in the environment and then being able to physically walk around that environment in game as Noway. You can upgrade those buildings. You can customize the looks of those buildings. There are a lot of cats and dogs just walking around Japan in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And if you can go up to one of those animals and pet them, it's almost like a collectible where you basically then add that dog or cat or whatever you pet to your database of animals that you can then populate your village with. So if you just want a bunch of fucking Akibas running around your ninja base, you can totally do that. If you want different, colored roofs and all this other shit, you can totally add that stuff to your base as well. What that means is like, you have to, part of the story is like, oh, I need to go find a master blacksmith, like very, very early in the game. And then you find him and he's like, well, I can't like stop working on weapons and stuff unless I have a base. So go to your ninja clan town and build me a base. And you do. And then he moves into your town, and then you go talk to him and he makes you a better sword, or makes the sword you already have better than the swords you found before, and so on and so forth. If this all sounds very familiar, it's because in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you were pretty much doing the same thing, but you were Vikings settling in England. And instead of being able to physically move the bases, they were all in prefab locations, and you were just finding the resources in the environment, much like you're doing in Assassin's Creed Shadows, going back to base and then dumping those resources into your town to upgrade your town. Graphically, though, it is a good looking game, man. Like, it maybe doesn't take as much influence on like traditional art and paintings that a game like Ghost of Tsushima did, but it is still a gorgeous looking game. Every time I turn around, it's just some like wind-swept field and, petals, cherry blossoms and leaves and all of this really gorgeous environment and stuff in the game. I think like from the environmental standpoint and the design of things, it looks really great. I think the characters look okay. And part of the reason why I say the characters look okay is because the facial animations are a little not great. I'm not going to sit here and say they're like some Mass Effect Andromeda levels of face animation, but they are a little stiff. And the voice acting in some of the character performances also a little stiff. I have gone back and forth between the English voice acting and something that they call the immersion or immersive mode. There are a variety of audio tracks in the game to choose from. And if you want to do all English or all Japanese, you can do that. But the immersive mode essentially mixes your a little bit of English in the game with the Portuguese in the game, with the Japanese in the game, all naturally, again, all Shogun-like. But going back and forth between them, I just find the voice acting to be just a tad stiff, a little flat as a result. There were some good performances out of the actress who plays Naoe, especially early on in the game when she's watching old pops get slaughtered by those goddamn samurai, those evil sons of bitches. But I think like once you actually get through the game, like there was a good moment where you're like learning about a tea, like a ritualistic kind of tea ceremony, in terms of learning about the tradespeople in the area to see like who's kind of running financials and running resources for Nobunaga and all the assassins or the evil assassins and all this other stuff. But for the most part, like, I can't really judge Yasuke because he was only in it for a few minutes and I mostly was cutting dudes when I was playing as him. But my time with Naoe, I'm just like, like the character is not terrible. Like there's actually something to Naoe as a character that I think helps, ground this traditional revenge mission into something that isn't incredibly played out, tired, and boring. Like there's something to Naoe and the character. I'll give her that. But the actual performance feels a little stiff, and I actually feel it feels a little stiff whether you're playing it in Japanese or in English. So I'm guessing if you are looking for a slightly more authentic experience or potentially a scenario where you can't quite tell the difference between the performances because you're not maybe familiar with one language over the other, then yeah, maybe play immersive mode. But the writing is fine. The voice acting is okay. So I would almost argue that it doesn't really matter what language track you play in the game. I like the design of the weapons. I like the look of her armor and her gear. She's a very light look. She's a very lean character. But so the gear looks very light and breathable, and really justifies this idea of like I'm running, I'm jumping, I'm grappling and stuff like that. With the grapple hook, you can either swing from point to point when there is a grapple point that you can swing from, or you're basically running up to the roof of a building, running to the start of the roof of a building and then grappling as you climb upwards and whatnot. This is a game where you are sneaking into side bases and finding loot in the environment and stealing the loot and, climbing up to your towers and then synchronizing the environment so that you can see more of the map in the larger open world. It is one of those games. The game also introduces the concept of seasons. And, my only kind of familiarity with seasons in a video game, not in the live service sense, is something like Forza Horizon 4 and 5. This idea that you're going to be going from spring to fall, from fall to winter, from winter to spring to summer. I'm even getting my seasons confused. The point is that they've introduced this concept of seasons, to kind of, add to the effect of like, oh, well, what does the weather look like during the seasonal time, right? Is it raining? Is it snowing? What's going on? And all this stuff. And the season stuff they were kind of hyping it up. It feels a little basic in this game in the sense that like I've only experienced, I think, spring and summer, but like it's just based on how long you play the game. Like if you play the game for like 2 hours or something, like I think it's like 2 hours to complete the first half of spring, and then the next time you fast travel or you start a mission, like time will pass and then the next half of the season will start. So there's like 2 halves to every season, and I think it takes like maybe like 2 to 4 hours to complete a season. Don't quote me on exactly that, but like going from spring to summer, I was like, I can't really tell the difference. Maybe it'll make significant changes when I get to the other seasons, but for now, like it seems like a good way to make the environments in the game more distinct and more pretty, and to be able to show off their weather effects and their lighting effects, because it is a really great looking game from the perspective of the environments and the design of the towns and that sort of thing. I think it's just the characters and their animation, especially specifically their face animation, that maybe fall a little bit flat. That is all to say that I think this game is pretty good. There was a part of me that was wondering if I was ready to, if I was ready to play another one of these games, if I was ready to commit to one of these games. I'm currently playing it as part of the Ubisoft Plus subscription service, so I only get about a month with the game, and I could probably finish it before the end of the month. But I also have a ton of other games that I'm currently playing. But for me, Assassin's Creed Shadows is definitely going to be a focus on games that I play going forward. In fact, we're going to be streaming some Assassin's Creed Shadows on Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, over at twitch.tv/GnittWitt. I would be lying if I wasn't at least a little bit curious about where, Naoe's story is going and things like that. But really, I just like running around, cutting dudes up. Like it's a very fast game. Like that combat is quite quick. But it also, I think it does a good job of, kind of focusing on, hey, you either need to properly time your parry or your block, or you need to dodge, because they will cut you up pretty quick in the game. There's also this concept of armor. So when you come across like a big samurai, in order to make him more difficult, you basically need to chip away at his armor through the more heavy attacks that you can do in the game before you can actually go in and kill him and actually like draw blood and things like that. So what that means is you're going to need to worry less about actually blocking and parrying his attacks and more about getting him out of position so you can land a heavy strike to chip away at that armor until he eventually drops. Overall, I think that combat's a lot of fun. I have enjoyed running around. The side quests have not been amazing. I will say, like, the side quest storylines have not blown me away. There are other side activities in terms of like, oh, you came across a temple. Can you pray at all of the altars? Then we'll give you bonus experience points or whatever. But there was a side quest that around you kind of finding a one-eyed dog, and then you follow that one-eyed dog home, and then you learn about a potentially abusive owner, an abusive woman who was married to the dog's owner, and it's just like, and then you basically kill everybody in the family, and the dog's like, okay, well, I guess I'll go live with you now, and I'm like, it's not amazing stuff, but there's a main story that involved a tea ceremony, and basically you had to go undercover as Naoe and meet these women who are like influential traders in the area. And it was cool because every time you went up to one of these women, you had to introduce yourself, and they always gave you 3 choices as to what fake name you gave them. I gave them the same fake name every time, but it was also a scenario where the host of the tea ceremony is this guy who helps you prepare for the tea ceremony that he eventually runs. So it's this interesting scenario where it's like, okay, this is how you bow. And then I'm like, writing down on typing in my phone, okay, you have to bow halfway because that's the way he taught me to do it in the tutorial for this tea ceremony. And I'm like, oh shit, what was the fake name I gave the guy when I introduced myself before he taught me how to participate in the tea ceremonies? Because I was wondering if it was a scenario of like, if I gave every person that I met in that party, that tea ceremony, a fake name, what the outcome of that story would be. But I eventually did give everybody the correct name. And then you find out that, potentially there's a target involved in and around some of the people in this tea ceremony. And then that is one of the assassins. When I talk about this game taking a lot of influence from something like the other Ubisoft games, the game that immediately comes to my mind is Ghost Recon Wildlands, for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is because there's the concept of using scouts in the game. Now, the scouts don't work like your allies in Ghost Recon Wildlands, but there is this concept of you find materials in the world, resources and materials in a base that you then tag and that your scouts come and pick up later. Something that kind of happens in Ghost Recon Wildlands. The other thing that happens in Ghost Recon Wildlands is they give you a bunch of targets in the game pretty early on, and then just let you go about taking out the targets however you see fit. And I have ventured outside of the main area of the world where the main story is happening at the moment, and I have come across some smaller, less important lieutenants and Ronin and stuff like that who are part of the overall hierarchy of the people that I have to go kill. So they do kind of do that thing of like, okay, here's your targets, kind of go about it how you see fit. I imagine a lot of those targets are still locked to the story mode. You're probably not going to find them running around the open world. But some of the smaller players in your list of targets and stuff like that, you can definitely find in the open world, which is again something that kind of reminds me of Ghost Recon Wildlands. Overall, I would say I'm really enjoying it. This is way, way, way better than I thought it was going to be, considering all the problems with Ubisoft and just how kind of whatever the game looked leading up to launch. But whatever extra time they needed to get this game good, it worked out incredibly well. So I'm very, 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 very happy with Assassin's Creed Shadows so far. In terms of who do I recommend this game to, why would I recommend this game? If you haven't played Origins and you haven't played Odyssey or Valhalla, you can get those games for much cheaper than you can get this game currently. If you have a particular feeling on those periods of history between ancient Greece and Egypt and Vikings and all that stuff, you couldn't pick a bad one. They all seem fine. Even though I never played Odyssey, I thought Origins was good. I thought Valhalla was mostly good, if maybe a little too long and bloated. That all being said, if you are just no, man, I loved Shogun and I love ninjas and I love feudal Japan, then yeah, you can probably skip to this. Or if you haven't played one in a while, this is probably a safe one to get. But it is, again, one of those games. Can't stress enough. It is one of those games. There's nothing wrong with it being one of those games. I think you were maybe a fool if you expected it to be any different. But I really like it, and I would recommend it with maybe a little bit of caveats. But I'm excited to see where that story goes, because there are definitely some interesting story moments, even if some of the performances from the characters have not been that amazing. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got more news. Stick around. Well, actually, we're having all the news, not more news. It's all of the news. Anyways, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt, and it is time to talk news. The new game, or one of the big new games, I'm sure there are other games, but I haven't been. You expect this guy who runs a video game podcast to pay attention to video games. All I know is there's a big new game, well, medium-ish size game coming out this week in the form of Atomfall. We already mentioned it, but it is a new game from your friends and mine over at Rebellion. And it is a post-apocalyptic survival action first-person shooter set in, I believe, post-apocalyptic Northern England. I don't know my Northern England from my Southern Englands, but these are the same folks that made Sniper Elite and Zombie Army. And that's out tomorrow. That is going to be out pretty much, soon. It's out very, 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 very. Basically, it's out soon. Tomorrow. I think 8 a.m. Tomorrow to be exact. Anyways, there was a game that I've been kind of looking forward to. I'm always curious. Check out a post-apocalyptic survival action first-person shooter. So sure, sign me up. I've not been crazy about some of Rebellion's previous work, but I think the Sniper Elite games are fun. They're about as good as a game is going to get that focuses on sniping in video games. Anyways, that is all to say that I have the Atomfall review scores up now, courtesy of OpenCritic, and the reviews for it are okay. Maybe not as high as something like an Assassin's Creed Shadows, but it's all right. Currently, it has a 75 average on OpenCritic, with 63% of critics recommending the game, and that is out of 65 review scores. It is coming out on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox Uno, and the personal computer, which is where I would be playing it. Let's take a look at some of the review scores. GameSpot, 7 out of 10, saying with its wide open quest design, Atomfall takes a novel approach to storytelling that helps push through some of its lesser parts. Game Rant with a 6 out of 10, saying that Atomfall looks amazing and has some really great ideas, but most of its ideas are overshadowed by frustrating game design and mechanical roadblocks. IGN, 8 out of 10, saying Atomfall is a compelling post-apocalyptic survival story that satisfyingly bends to your choices and discoveries no matter which direction you take. 3 out of 5, courtesy of Eurogamer, saying if you can get over a difficult start and fancy a lean take on the survival genre, Atomfall delivers an intriguing tale worth discovering. PC Gamer 62 out of 100 saying Atomfall can be a fun diversion, but it really needs to take a gap year so it can find itself. Games Radar Plus a 4.5 out of 5 saying it's up to you is the philosophy at heart of Atomfall. Rock Paper Shotgun, you know they're not about those review scores, but they say Atomfall looks and sometimes plays like a middling survival shooter, but its passions truly lie in exploration and investigation, and it's much better at both. You know, does this fill me up to the brim with excitement? Does this make me want to drop everything that I'm doing to play this over a, something like an Assassin's Creed Shadows? Absolutely not. It does not. It does not. That's not how this works. That all being said, it seems like a game that I would at least like to poke at and see how it is. It's coming to Game Pass. I have Game Pass. I can do all the Game Pass stuff that I kind of want with that game. It also reminds me that maybe I should go back and take a look at, what the hell was that game called? Not Chernobyl. Stalker 2. Maybe I should go back and reload Stalker 2 and see if they've significantly improved that game, since release. I couldn't quite tell you, but maybe I should check it out. Rebellion, listen, here's the other thing. Rebellion, in my experience, kind of making those B tier games. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, Sniper Elite 3, 4, or whatever we're up to now, or Zombie Army, or Strange Brigade, or any of these games made by Rebellion are some triple A, quad A, big fucking thing. Like they've never done that. From everything I know about Rebellion, they have never been about your triple A massive gaming experience, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the other hand, I would say that like we need more games like Atomfall on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus and things like that. Like, don't get me wrong. It's nice to be able to play, some big budget, Indiana Jones or whatever on Game Pass. That's fine. That's cool. That's how I did it. But in order, I think, for Game Pass to truly thrive, and I feel this way about a lot of subscription services that aren't music based specifically, because the music based subscription services, you're getting pretty much everything all at a one go, right? You're not missing out on somebody, on some song because you have, a certain subscription over the other, right? But with movies and TV shows and games, you that sometimes ends up being the case. That all being said, you kind of need niche genre stuff to help prop up a subscription service like Game Pass. Like, I know that, sci-fi, RPG, shooter, adventure games are not going to be everybody's forte, and that's totally fine. But like, you kind of need those sorts of genres to help flesh out, release schedules and tastes and interests between big games. Like if I go to the, Xbox, app on my personal computer right here, right now, and we look at games coming out, Avowed, a game that kind of, fits a certain genre and mold for some people. If I go look at Game Pass games, Halo and, other games that are coming to Game Pass, like Tony Hawk and Doom the Dark Ages and Towerborn and Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which, man, I'll tell you right now. Oh boy, tell you right now. Microsoft's got some heat coming because I am very, very excited about Expedition 33. Very, very excited about Doom the Dark Ages. And I'm actually more excited about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 now that I actually went back and played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 and realized maybe the 4 formula needed to change in order to be remade. But, Commando's Origins, a real-time tactical game, or South of Midnight. You need these sorts of games to help flesh out your big Halos and your big Starfields or whatever. So in a sense, like, I'm all for them mixing up the formula in terms of making some sort of weird game or potentially weird game like Atomfall in order to appease certain people. Cause I think that's how you become successful in your offerings, right? You want something that kind of goes in between what you expect from, quality of games and, production of games and style of games and all of that stuff. So that's all to say, I'm very curious to check out, Atomfall. I will definitely give it a shot, and I'll probably get to it as soon as it comes out tomorrow. And we'll make that happen. And maybe we'll even play a little bit of Atomfall on the show, on the live stream on Friday. We'll see. I'll check that out. But I'm fine with it. Like, I don't know, like, even if how bad could Atomfall be? I guess my question. Let's move on to news finally. I know this is a long podcast, but let's move on to news. Good news. This is probably the best news to come out of 2025 as far as I'm concerned. Game Informer recently closed as of late last year, and they're back. Game Informer has been rescued, with the entire team being reunited. In an announcement posted on its revived website on Tuesday, Game Informer said it would be returning in both digital and print magazine format, with the entire team that was working together during its closure now reunited. Game Informer was closed by previous owner GameStop last year following a 33-year run as a print and online publication. Over the months since our closure, two remarkable things happened, wrote editor-in-chief Matt Miller. The first is that Game Informer as a brand and an outlet was purchased and given a new lease on life. The second is that the entire team that was working together at Game Informer's closure has returned from editorial to production and beyond. The entire team. Matt Miller added, "How did all this happen? After first touching base with our team and ensuring our interest, the team at Gunzilla Games secured the rights to Game Informer." Now, listen, I have never heard of Gunzilla Games up until this point. So, take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. They might not be the worst people ever, but there's a catch. Gunzilla Games is the creator of the NFT Battle Royale game Off the Grid and the blockchain platform Guns. The studio has the backing of Hollywood director Neil Blomkamp, who is its chief visionary officer. So you have these people that are into blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFT bullshit, now involved with Game Informer. Now I'm going to say this. If they've been successful in their crypto, blockchain, NFT bullshit, then maybe they can just let Game Informer do their thing without necessarily having to squeeze blood from a stone in terms of every last ounce of profitability and all of that stuff. But that's really my biggest problem is like, why did it have to be NFTs? Why did it have to be the blockchain and all of this stuff? Matt Miller also wrote, from the start, the new owners insisted on the idea of Game Informer remaining an independent editorial outlet. They felt just as strongly as our team did that the only path forward was with an editorial group that made 100% of the decisions around what we cover and how we do so, without any influence from them or anyone else. Game Informer now operates under an entity called Game Informer Incorporated, and our intent is to continue to focus on highlighting the coolest games, celebrating the history and legacy of the gaming industry, and shining a spotlight on the creators and players who are charting its future. I am deeply grateful for the trust and enthusiasm from the team at Gunzilla Games. They see the same potential in Game Informer as our team does, and their encouragement to do so ethically and free of outside pressure is laudable. And for those wondering, the Game Informer website is now back online, including an archive of its legacy content. It also intends to revive the print magazine, it said, along with a number of subscription benefits. So one of the cool things, if you go to the Game Informer website right now, they have okay, this is actually kind of cheeky. They have a top 11 video game resurrections list, which I think is funny. And they're like, oh, why would we talk about game resurrections? And it's like, oh, because Game Informer's back and all of that stuff. But the other thing they did is they also did every review from Game Informer's hiatus. So if you've been missing out on what Game Informer had to say about, say, the casting of Frank Stone, that was the game made by Supermassive Games, the Until Dawn people. They gave the casting of Frank Stone a 5.5 and said it's maybe the worst Supermassive game yet. They also reviewed Star Wars Outlaws and Astrobot and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 and Silent Hill 2 and Neva and Dragon Age, the Veilguard, and all of this stuff. So if you want to go catch up on that stuff, Game Informer is the place to be. We were just talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows. Let's go back and actually talk about a little bit more about Assassin's Creed Shadows, because my understanding, and from what Ubisoft is presenting, Assassin's Creed Shadows is supposedly the series' second biggest launch ever. The only other game to launch better from a sales and player perspective is Valhalla. Now, I'm getting this news from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles. According to Video Games Chronicles, Assassin's Creed Shadows launched on consoles and PC last week and surpassed 2 million players in 2 days, according to a Ubisoft announcement published over the weekend, which noted it was higher than both Origins and Odyssey. According to further data seen by Video Games Chronicles, Shadows delivered the second highest day one sales revenue in the franchise history, behind only Valhalla. Notably, it did so launching in March when other series entries arrived during the more lucrative Thanksgiving season and did not benefit from the pandemic boost enjoyed by Valhalla. Remember, Valhalla came out during the pandemic, so everyone was staying at home playing video games anyways. Shadows marked Ubisoft's best ever day one launch on the PlayStation Digital Store, where it was the most wish-listed Ubisoft title of all time and generated over 11 million hours watched on Twitch, the strongest stat for any recent Ubisoft title, including Valhalla. Significantly, PC represented around 27% of total activations, which encompasses both full sales and subscriptions via something like Ubisoft Plus. They also said that Steam played a significant role in the performance of the game. Assassin's Creed Shadows is the first major Ubisoft game to release day one on Steam since 2019. Previously, the publisher prioritized its own digital store as well as the Epic Game Store at launch. Shadows was also arriving at a pivotal moment for the publisher, following several underperforming releases and worsening financial outlook. Ubisoft said in January it was taking decisive steps to reshape the company and actively exploring various strategic and capitalistic options to unlock the full value potential of its assets. How about some more Assassin's Creed Shadows sales data for that ass? You know, we talk about the UK, because the UK is one of the few places where we can get sales data. And I'm not going to tell you that anything that happens in the UK can happen in North America or Asia or anything like that. But hey, we can take a guess. Assassin's Creed Shadows sold more copies in the UK, more physical copies in the UK in 1 week than Star Wars Outlaws did in 3 months. That is fucking crazy. And the reason why I think it's crazy, it has nothing to do with the quality of the games. It's because one of them is called Assassin's Creed and the other is fucking Star Wars. How is it possible that the Star Wars Outlaws game fucked up this bad that Assassin's Creed like is doing laps around Star Wars Outlaws in terms of sales. That's fucking crazy. I don't even know what to think, but I think it just goes to show that Assassin's Creed really, really is Ubisoft's golden goose. Say what you will about the Tom Clancy or the Avatar or the Rayman, say what you will about Skull and Bones, a game that I'm sure everybody is currently playing right now who isn't playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. But Assassin's Creed Shadows really, really is the golden goose for Ubisoft, and it seems to be doing quite well for them so far. I also think that most normal people could not give less of a shit about the controversy, the fake controversy that led to some people trying to harass the developers of Assassin's Creed Shadows, like we talked about last week in the podcast. Like, I just think most normal people are like, okay, cool, there's a black guy in it. Okay, cool, it takes place in Japan. What am I supposed to be mad about? What am I supposed to give a fuck about? Like, most people could not give less of a shit about whatever fake anti-woke outrage is going on with these dipshits that are mad about Assassin's Creed, because the game's doing well. The game's doing quite well. It seems to be probably even doing better than, some of the expectations just minutes before launch, considering how rocky it was looking for Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed Shadows as well. So, hey, you know what? I want to say just, round of applause, hats off to everybody at Ubisoft Quebec, and Assassin's Creed. I think they have done a real bang up job with this game so far, and it continues to sell quite well, hopefully into the future. This is a real quick one. We have confirmed the release date for the PS5 version of Indiana Jones, coming out April 17th. That is soon. That is very, very soon. You can pre-order it now digitally on the PlayStation 5, if that is your thing. We were talking about Tony Hawk, and we were talking about Jackass. Well, the Jackass cast member, Bam Margera, who also appeared in a number of Tony Hawk games, apparently is going to be in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 after all, after Tony Hawk himself intervened. Apparently Activision did not want to put the troubled skater in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, and the Hawkman himself came through and said that Bam Margera was added to the game last minute after Tony Hawk demanded it. So here's what we know. During a live stream on the Live Club Skating podcast, it's been claimed that Bam was added to the game at a last minute due to Tony Hawk's involvement. Co-host of the podcast, Roger Bagley, said, "Well, here's what happened. The game was already done. Tony called up Activision and was like, 'Hey, we're putting Bam in the thing.' And they're like, 'Hey, we can't.' And he goes, 'No, you're going to do it.' And basically made them fly Bam back out there to get body scanned and everything and get him back in the game." Chris Roberts then says, co-host Chris Roberts says, "So this might be news that it's not out there yet, though." And Bagley said, "Probably. Video Games Chronicles, doing their best, contacted Activision for a comment and didn't hear back." And just a reminder that Bam Margera's had a rough go at it. I'm not here to tell you if he did it to himself or what, but Bam Margera's faced a string of health and legal issues in recent years due to issues related to substance abuse. He was fired from Jackass Forever, after which he was issued a restraining order from Jackass director Jeff Tremaine. Tremaine had previously fought for years to include Margera in the reunion film. And as a reminder, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater comes out July 11th, 2025. We got some more news. This one's is pretty fun. I talk about like the need and inclusion for, more gaming outlets and more coverage of games and more people talking about games and really championing games, right? Like don't get me wrong, I will shit on a video game every now and then. I am not going to call myself the biggest champion of video games, but I try my best. I think Game Informer is a great place for championing video games. I think, GameIndustry.biz, a great champion for, the business aspect of this industry. Video Games Chronicles, great. Like I got no beef with a lot of these institutions, right? And there are even some great YouTubers and content creators and smaller people and everything doing great work as well. But I feel like we always need more, right? We always need more indie publishers helping people get their games out the door on a budget, on a schedule, first game, debut game, whatever it may be, right? I'm always for it. So when I hear that Jeff Keighley and Christopher Dring are announcing a new publication called The Game Business, I start to get excited to be like, you know what? This is awesome. This is probably exactly what the industry needs. It is going to be a business-to-business site that will have a physical event alongside Summer Game Fest, which, hey, Summer Game Fest is coming up, y'all. I don't have the dates. Don't ask me. Don't ask me the dates. But Summer Game Fest is coming soon. The Game Awards producer, Jeff Keighley, and former GameIndustry.biz editor, Christopher Dring, have launched a new business publication called The Game Business. You can go to gamebusiness.com and receive email updates if you would like. They also have some small, I activated a video. They also have a small section of their website you can also take a look at as well. Very much seems to be focusing on the games industry and maybe not so much the games themselves, right? Like one of the latest they did is like, talking about major publishers planning to delay games in the face of the Grand Theft Auto 6 launch, right? If it comes out this year, things like that. The Game Business will deliver regular business-to-business podcasts and newsletters, as well as a physical event set to run alongside this year's Summer Game Fest. The Game Business Live will take place on June 9th in Los Angeles, with tickets going on sale to early subscribers. They describe it as a next-generation platform-agnostic trades publication designed to illuminate the evolving gaming landscape. The publication's output will initially include twice-weekly video podcasts featuring interviews and news discussions, as well as a newsletter. The mission of the Game Business is to support the health of the industry and to clarify its complexities for consumers. Christopher Dring says, "My goal is to connect industry members to engage in open and constructive discussions about how we can make this business stronger, better, and more sustainable for everyone who cares about this medium and its future." He added that Jeff may be backing it, but TGB is not part of the Game Awards despite the acronym. This is a separate entity that I'm responsible for, but Jeff's support does mean we can go faster. I can make most of it free, and it means we can put on our first event, the Game Business Live, which takes place alongside the Summer Game Fest in June. Jeff Keighley said in a statement, "Christopher Dring is a singular talent in the video game industry and deeply invested in the health of our sector. When Christopher presented me with his idea of starting this venture, I was eager to help him create a new type of trade publication that aligns directly with how our industry consumes critical business intelligence today, fast, focused, and forward thinking." So if you want to get more of an insider industry analyst focused perspective, check out the Game Business if that sounds like your thing. I am going to sign up for their newsletter. Hold on. Please hold. Yes, I will sign up for sure. No. Maybe I'll check out the podcast later. Anyways, let's keep moving on. God of War. Everybody loves God of War. Everybody loves Kratos, that big, beefy man. A new God of War side story project is set in Greece and is supposedly coming this year. It's not a remaster collection, but something new. That's according to Jeff Grubb, everyone's favorite video game journalist, Jeff Grubb. He says, I think that those God of War remaster rumors just jumped the gun a little bit. The stuff that will happen is more likely going to be a side story project. Don't know when, but we might get some more Kratos in Greece before too long. I wonder what type of Greece we're talking about. Is John Travolta going to be there? Is Kratos going to fight John Travolta? Phil Spencer says that you can expect more movies and TV shows based on Xbox games. I guess they didn't learn their lesson with Halo. Then again, I know that they just recently put Halo on Netflix, so maybe I really should give that Halo show a shot. Of course, they also have the Minecraft movie. The Minecraft movie is supposed to debut in theaters April 4th with Jack Black and Jason Momoa, to name a few people. Anyways, forget the Minecraft movie and just hear me out. Speaking of Variety ahead of its movie's launch, Spencer commented on Hollywood's recent interest in video game properties, with movies like the Super Mario Bros. Movie and the Sonic the Hedgehog trilogy among the most successful examples. Spencer says Xbox is still learning and growing through the process of adapting its games to film and TV, that it's embracing the Hollywood spirit of trial and error. We learned from doing Halo. We learned from doing Fallout, which I will say Fallout is a fucking badass show. Man, Fallout is so good. They did a great job with Halo. Anyways, obviously we'll have a couple that miss, but what I'd say to the Xbox community that likes this work is you're going to see more because we're gaining confidence and we're learning through this. We've talked about this before. I will continue to beat this drum because I don't know what else to do. I believe in it. 2/3 of total PC playtime last year was on games that are at least 6 years old, according to a new report. I mean, I feel like a broken record at this point. Like, I feel like I've just said this over and over again, that like we need, in order to maintain a more healthy industry, like, yeah, get Game Informer back, get the game business up and running, get all that stuff, Summer Game Fest, you name it. We need more people playing new games. We really, really do. I can't stress enough that we need more people playing new games. Like, I get it. You want to just come home after a hard day's work and just throw on some Warzone and just chill for 2 hours before you go to bed and have to go through the grind all over again. Maybe you don't want to spend $90 on something like Indiana Jones because you don't know if it's going to be any good. And oh, it's only like a 20-30 hour game. Well, I don't really want to spend $90 on that when I could spend nothing and play Fortnite until the cows come home. Oh, why would you buy your kid any video games when they can just play Fortnite or Roblox or League of Legends or whatever? But when I read that headline, I continue to be disappointed in where all of this is heading. But hey, we all wanted forever games. We all wanted forever games that we could play forever. And we got them. And look what's happened. According to the report, last year, 67% of total time spent playing PC games was on games that are 6 years old or more, with the most popular examples being Counter-Strike 2 and Counter-Strike Go at 7.1%, League of Legends at 6.4%, Roblox at 6.2%, Dota 2 at 5.8%, and Fortnite at 5.4%. A further 25% of PC playtime was spent on games that are 2 to 5 years old, with the only remaining 8% spent on 2024 releases. While the difference was less stark on consoles, it still remained within the amount of playtime dedicated to the 6-plus-year-old games, sitting at roughly 44% on PlayStation and 19% on Xbox, Both console formats saw 15% of total playtime spent on 2024 releases. According to the report, overall playtime hours are growing, but concentrated in AAA and at times cannibalistic. The battle for audience hours is fierce and near zero sum. The report claims that an average of 10 games were played per person on Steam in 2024, with similar averages of 10 on PlayStation and 9 on Xbox. Players had to have played each game for at least 2 hours for it to count towards their total. Play habits are calcifying into fewer games and reducing the addressable market for new launches. The report also states that yearly console revenue spent on full-price games totaled around $20 billion. It's actually $19.9 billion, which it says is down 14% compared to 2023. Newzoo, which the report comes from, puts this down to 2024's inability to match 2023's strong release slate due to the release of such titles as The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, Baldur's Gate 3, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which I will say right now, 2024 games not nearly as poppin' as 2023. So I think that's fair. Baldur's Gate, a fucking huge game. Spider-Man 2, a big ass game. It's Legend of Zelda, it's a goddamn Zelda game. Mario, he's fucking Mario. So I get it. That makes sense to me. I got a couple more news stories. Just stick with me. We're almost there. Really quick. The Seattle Mariners will wear Nintendo and Switch 2 logos on their jersey this season. When does spring training end? I don't know anything about baseball. I don't know shit about shit. What I know is that Nintendo Direct, there's going to be a Nintendo Direct presentation on April 2nd, 1 week after the Mariners season begins. Okay, well, that makes sense. The team announced the uniform changes on social media with including brief sneak peeks at the 2 patches. Our jerseys are leveling up. We are excited to expand our long-standing relationship with Nintendo of America with jerseys featuring Nintendo at home and Nintendo Switch 2 on the road. Now you might be wondering, how did all of this come to be? It's because Nintendo actually has a long history with the Mariners. Then President Hiroshi Yamauchi became majority owner of the team in 1992 as part of a buyout to keep the team in Seattle to thank the people of Washington for their help in supporting Nintendo. The majority ownership eventually transferred over to Nintendo itself before it sold most of its shares in 2016. With the new patches, Nintendo has become the first ever sleeve sponsor for the Seattle Mariners franchise. What's more, the use of the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 patches marks the first time any MLB team has featured different sleeve patches on their home and away jerseys. Nintendo and the Mariners have been inextricably linked since 1992, says team president of business ops Kevin Martinez in an official announcement. Now, each time the Mariners take the field, our jersey sleeves will help serve as a reminder of all that Nintendo of America has done for the Northwest community and the team. When I think about what Nintendo has done for the Pacific Northwest in America, I believe Nintendo of America are also the ones who figured out who killed Laura Palmer. So that'll be fun. Anyways, opening season, March 27th, against the Athletics. Baseball. I don't know anything about baseball. I've never even seen Major League, so I should probably watch Major League before I get to any baseball. Couple other quick news stories. Nintendo is going to do another Direct before the big Switch 2 Direct. So the Nintendo Direct is going to take place Thursday, March 27th at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It'll be 30 minutes long and will focus on games set to be released on the original Nintendo Switch with no announcement for Switch 2 games. They will host a separate Switch 2 Direct next week. Nintendo Directs. Watch out for them. A real quick news story. Rumors are that Sabrina Carpenter is going to be the next playable celebrity coming to Fortnite Festival because her distinct microphone is featured in the game files. And I'm going to say a couple of things. I listened to Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, and it's kind of dumb and it's kind of catchy, but it really didn't do anything for me on an emotional level. Sabrina Carpenter is a pretty lady, so putting her in Fortnite, sure. I played some Fortnite. Actually, I've been playing a little bit of Fortnite every now and then. They added Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat to Fortnite, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. I didn't spend any money on Fortnite, don't worry. But I remembered that they put kicks into Fortnite, and that is you being able to spend real money on virtual shoes that you can put on any character in the game. And I did think to myself, wouldn't it be funny if I had Alan Wake running around in some sick ass Jordans, but I didn't want to spend like $11, $12 to make that happen. So I didn't. I played some of that Fortnite Festival. So Fortnite Festival, if you don't know, Fortnite Festival is basically they put Rock Band into Fortnite. But instead of using plastic instruments, you can also use controllers if you want to. And I was like, okay, cool. You can play it by yourself or you can play it with other people. And basically you just group together and the people pick the songs and then you just play the songs. You can also buy songs in the game. They give you some free songs to play, and then you can buy songs if you want to. Like, I think I was looking at I think there's like Thin Lizzy. Like, I think you could buy Numb by Linkin Park, I believe. You can also buy Venom if you want to run around as Venom, or Eddie Brock without the Venom suit on, whatever works for you. Anyways, so here's the thing. I had launched the game and I was like, you know what? I'm going to play this. I'm going to dress up as my John Cena character and I'm going to play some of this Fortnite Festival. I'm going to try it out. And I wasn't too sure I wasn't too sure what song I was going to play or, whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll just play drums. I'll opt to play drums on the controller. And the first song that we played was Through the Fire and the Flames by Dragon Force. And I'm sitting there playing on the drums and there's no music. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I'm just sitting there. And if you ever heard Through the Fire and Flames, it's like a 6-minute song or whatever. Like it's long enough. And I'm just sitting there in silence, just quietly tapping out the drum beat to Through the Fire and the Flames on my controller. I don't hear any music. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I start to think, well, you can buy songs. So can you not hear the song unless you buy it? And then I'm like looking through the library of songs you can buy. And I'm like, well, I don't even think you can buy Through the Fire and the Flames right now. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And I'm going through it. And I'm just like, okay. So I finished the whole song in complete silence. Can't stress enough, complete silence. Other than like some of the sound effects and stuff like that, like the menu prompts and stuff like that from the game with other people. And I'm like, I don't know if these other people can hear this song. I don't know what's going on. Like I can hear everything else but the music. So then I go through the options and I guess I at some point turned down the music volume to 0 in Fortnite, which applies to every aspect of Fortnite. So if you don't want to hear the music in, say, the Battle Royale mode or the Lego mode, it's all the same volume setting for all the stuff. And that's when I realized, oh, I'm a dummy and I just turned off the volume in the audio settings for music specifically. And then I went and I played some other songs and I was like, okay, I got to be honest, tapping out a drum beat on a controller in fake Rock Band is maybe not my idea of a good time. But maybe it'd be better if I spent money to be able to play as Sabrina Carpenter. I was going to sing Espresso. I don't want to sing Espresso. Anyways, we're going to take one more quick break and we're going to cover the games that I've been playing, what to expect from the rest of the upcoming 2025 release schedules. We'll be right back. One moment. Welcome back to the podcast. We're going to quickly wrap this show up in a moment, but Before we do that, let's talk about some of the games that I have been playing. I continue to chip away at Wayfinder. I think the how would I describe it? The new car smell, the novelty of it kind of being a single player MMO fake, not really live service, definitely not live service sort of game. I think it's kind of worn off at this point. I'm about 7-ish hours into Wayfinder, and for the price I paid, was like 18, 20 bucks, whatever. I think it's fine. Like I think it's decent, but I also think that it is maybe getting a little repetitive after about 7 hours or so. I have not hit the max level with my character. I've not done everything that I need to do, but I will probably continue to chip away at that game, especially when I need to watch something or do something else. Again, I think Wayfinder is a great game when you need to be doing something else while playing a game at the same time. And for that reason, I continue to recommend Wayfinder, even if I may be slowing down a little bit on it so far. But in fairness, Assassin's Creed Shadows did come out this week. Can you blame me? Also been chipping away at Mortal Kombat 11. I bought Mortal Kombat 11 during the Steam sale. And when I bought it during the Steam sale, I already knew that I had played through the main story once on Xbox Game Pass, but I didn't have all the DLC characters, and I hadn't played through the Aftermath storyline, which is the DLC epilogue, that they made for Mortal Kombat 11. But I also kind of went into more like my kind of replaying of Mortal Kombat 11 a little bit differently. One of the things I thought to myself was, can I learn a character? Can I learn one character? There's a lot of characters in the game. Can I learn one character? Because the other thing is, as you play through that character, you're also leveling up the gear and abilities and stuff like that of the character that you have, or the character that you're playing as, and you can customize it with different moves and perks and stuff like that through the gear system in the game. I wouldn't call it an RPG, but it's less of an RPG than Assassin's Creed Shadows. The point is, I wanted to learn a character, both in terms of upgrading their gear and unlocking new stuff, but also, through play. Like I just wanted to learn the different moves, the different combos, and all of that stuff with the game. So after doing a microscopic amount of research, I kind of settled on Scorpion. I was like, you know what? Perhaps I will become a Scorpion guy. He's the guy with the spear that says, "Get over here." Wow, that is the name of the podcast for this week, huh? The guy with the spear that says, "Get over here." The point is, that's who I was going to play as, and I'm looking through the tutorials because if you are new to fighting games, one of the hardest things is just to wrap your mind around not just the controls, but the individual characters. And I'm happy to know that Mortal Kombat 11 actually has individual character tutorials if you're trying to not just master the basics of the game, but the individual character. So I'll probably go through the tutorials at some point, and probably the Scorpion tutorials as well. And I will probably play through that main story at some point in time and go straight into that Aftermath DLC. I have not played as a lot of the characters. Like I barely spent any time with the characters in the game as it is, because I've mostly been playing as Scorpion. I put maybe 2.5 hours or so into the game so far. But hey, if I come back to you talking about playing as RoboCop or Rambo or the Terminator or Sub-Zero or Spawn or the Joker, there's probably some other characters in the game that I'm totally forgetting. But the point is, if I come back with tales of other characters, that's totally cool. But I think I'm going to, again, a game I'm slowly going to chip away at will be Mortal Kombat 11, at least for the next little bit. Let's take a look at some upcoming releases. Like I said, Atomfall is going to be out tomorrow, March 27th. April is a big month for a variety of reasons. One of the big reasons why April is such a huge month is because Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is going to be out April 24th. But before that, Indiana Jones The Great Circle for PS5, April 17th. Clair Obscur, like I said, April 24th. Days Gone Remastered is coming out April 25th. And Forza Horizon 5 is coming to PS5 April 29th. One game that I have kind of forgotten about, but I'm weirdly curious about now that I think about it, is a little game called Dune Awakening. Dune Awakening is the crafting survival online game set in the Dune universe that is supposedly coming out sometime in May. We also, speaking of May, we have Doom the Dark Ages. That is coming out PS5 day one, Xbox Series X and S day one, and PC day one on May 15th. We're also getting that turn-based strategy game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tactical Takedown. That is coming out May 22nd on PC. Elden Ring Night Rain, the Elden Ring multiplayer game, is coming out on everything: PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, PC, May 30th. And for June, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, June 26th, PS5 only. July, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 remastered, PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Switch, probably Switch 2, and PC July 11th. We'll probably cover some other games later on because there's not a lot of games announced for the rest of this year. But that's what we have to look forward to. If I'm being honest with you, Clair Obscur is definitely on my list for anticipated games. I am very, very curious about that game. I'm also very, very curious about Doom the Dark Ages. Really looking forward to that. So I got some games to look forward to. I'm very happy that people are finally going to get a chance to play Forza Horizon 5 on PS5. I think that is super awesome. But April is a decent month. Decent month is for sure. Especially if you're looking for PS5 games. I mean, man, between like Clair Obscur and Indiana Jones and Forza Horizon 5 and Days Gone remastered, PS5 cooking. But of course, Xbox Series X and S and PC for Clair Obscur as well. That's going to do it for the podcast. I know this was a long one. Thank you for rocking with me. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. I am going to be live on Twitch Friday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are going to be playing a little game called Assassin's Creed Shadows. We'll probably also play a little bit of Atomfall in there as well. Maybe we'll see about Atomfall, but definitely some Assassin's Creed Shadows. For those curious, I'm about 7 hours into Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'll probably have more to talk about next week, but I wanted to kind of get that initial bit of Assassin's Creed out of the way on this podcast. I know it's been a longer podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you got any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out. I'm all over the internet and you can let me know how you're feeling about video games and anything and everything in between regarding games, wherever you find me. That's going to do it for the podcast. I've been GnittWitt. We'll see you all next week. Take it easy.